Hey, good morning. This is Bruce Starr, your state senator from Senate District 12, representing Yamhill and Polk counties. Welcome to Conversations with Bruce Starr. This is a regular podcast where we have guests on that are, I hope, interesting, where we can learn some things, where we can talk to folks that are really making an impact in our community. That's the goal of this conversation with Bruce Starr. And today we have a phenomenal guest, Dave Brown, who's got a life story of public service, both in the public school system, in coaching, and then beyond. And so stay tuned for a great conversation with Dave Brown. Thank you so much. Hey, welcome. This is the second conversation with Senator Bruce Starr. What a privilege this morning to have Dave Brown here to chat with us. Dave has a really interesting and remarkable story and life story, some twists and turns along the way. We're excited to listen and to hear about. And I'm just really, really pleased that you're here. And
Thank you.
We have the opportunity to visit. And listen and I think learn ultimately from your life experience. So why don't we get started? I know that in your professional life, professional career, heavily involved in education, heavily involved in coaching. Talk a little bit about, I think some folks know maybe the most recent experience of Dave Brown, but talk a little bit about what brought Dave Brown to where Dave Brown is today. Some of the history, some of the things we were just visiting about.
Yeah, I think going back for me, I got the privilege of working in the hardwood markets for a long time. And so I learned private business from Hardwood Industries, Jeff Workla, one of the smartest people I ever met. So I learned from the private enterprise, first, and then at about 40, decided that I really wanted to coach. It'd been my lifelong dream. And so I ended up, going to Newberg High School, and I spent 20 years there.
Yeah.
And I got my opportunity to coach, at the high school level, 20 years high school basketball, 24 years high school tennis, varsity.
Yeah.
10 years, football, 8th grade coach, 6 as head coach, more camps than you can remember, probably 10,000 kids in my lifetime. So, you have to make life choices it was kind of like, I'm going to go travel the world. You make less money and you're out there just.
You're loving on kids.
Yeah, and I had a few coaches that just, made my life better.
Right.
And I always, have taken the good from people, and then you try to just leave the bad behind and try to bring a lot of that to what I did at Newberg High School.
So outside of the coaching side, you had this education experience, teaching, corralling young kids. Talk a little bit about how that piece of it before we talk more about the coaching side.
Yeah, when I went to Newberg High School, I got put in the STAR program. And
so tell us what STAR means.
Well, STAR was just a program for kids who were scrambling, behind on credits. There was a lady in there named Mona Davis. She didn't really like me, but she didn't know anything about history. She was a good English teacher. And so we complemented each other really well. And she could tell after a while that I really connected with a lot of those kind of kids.
Right.
And I could get them to do stuff. And so it was a great way for about 8 years to get introduced to the high school program. And at the same time, I'm coaching football, basketball, tennis, just year-round, sports camps all summer. So, just immersed completely, 100%. Yeah.
So if you were a young person that went through the Newberg High School program, from what year to what year would they have encountered Dave Brown?
First grade through 12th grade.
Yeah, but so like...
Oh, and they're coming in?
Like 1995 or 2000?
2000 to 2019,
yeah,
20 years.
So 20 years. So kids that matriculated through the Newberg system had the opportunity to...
Just this last week, or 2 weeks ago, we were down in Indian Wells for the BNP, Big Tennis Tournament. We try to go every year. And a kid named Mike Hopkins played tennis for me. He just graduated from Westmont University. He played tennis down there.
Yeah.
He drove over for the day from Santa Barbara, and we spent a couple hours together. And it was the highlight of my entire trip, just hanging with Mike for a couple hours.
So tell me, so you had private business experience. How did that influence or impact your ability to impact kids' lives, both on the field and maybe in the classroom?
Well, I think my biggest thing growing up around in Newberg, Oregon, around St. Paul and Dayton farms, growing up that way, working on farms, having to get up at 4:30, getting home at 8, 9 o'clock every night. That was a big impact. Going into private business is something every public educator ought to have to do. Every government worker should have to do.
Right.
They should have to understand the difference between a real dollar and a fake dollar. So that was a great experience when you have to go through, working myself from the planer all the way to wholesale sales in a company. I got to know every part of it.
Right.
And again, it's not a knock on government employees. It's just a lot of times they're limited in their perspective.
Sure.
And I feel like I got a really well-rounded perspective. Then you go into public schools and you're in site council meetings for 3 hours talking about pencils, and you're like, okay, this would never happen in private business. You don't have time for this.
Sure.
So I was always bringing that perspective to public school, which would rub some people the wrong way because they like 3-hour meetings, and I don't. I like to get things done.
Right. You like to move at the speed of business and as opposed to the speed of bureaucracy.
Make money.
Yeah, exactly. So you obviously, or folks that know you know that you have strong faith.
Yes.
How does that impacted your life in the public eye or in public education?
Yeah, for my wife Judy and I, we go to Athey Creek Church.
Yeah.
We're strong believers in Jesus. I'm not going to ever apologize for that. I think, matter of fact, I've doubled down over and over and over and over on that because there's so many people out there hurting, and a lot of times they don't know why. And so on our podcast, with Stand Tall with Dave Brown, Paige and I, our weekly producer, we call it Getting Bible-y on You. And, I grew up not going to church, so I know what that's like.
Right.
I know what it's like to just don't get up on Sunday and go to church. I understand that perspective. I also understand the perspective of what we have now. There's no way, Bruce, we get through everything we've been through, death threats to the attacks in school board meetings to having your name dragged through the mud, recalls, all that kind of stuff without the faith we've got in Jesus.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about what motivated you. You're in public education. You've got a strong career in coaching, strong reputation in the community, and then you're presented with this opportunity to run for school board. What motivated you to do that? Talk a little bit about that experience, and then how it kind of turned.
Yeah, I think Billy Graham gets all the blame here. The Billy Graham Crusades came to Canby, Oregon, Franklin Graham, and we went to that the year before I retired. And he basically looked at everybody and said, "What do you do?" And everybody just kind of stopped. 11,000 people at Canby Fairgrounds. Mm-hmm. And I looked at him, and it caught my attention. I didn't know why. And then he let it marinate for about 30 seconds. He goes, "What do you do?" And I thought about that, but he had my attention, but I didn't know what he was saying. I feel like the Lord was just, it's one of those moments for me anyway.
Right.
And I'm not real charismatic and that stuff, but he let it marinate for like another 30 seconds. He came back and he said, "What do you do?"
There wasn't a bright light from heaven that shined down on Dave Brown's head, but certainly there was a small voice that was speaking in your heart.
Yeah, it was just Jesus hit me over the head with a bat, I think. He said, "What do you do?" And he goes, "Are you involved in local politics? Are you involved in the city council, the county commissioners, the school boards? What do you do?" And at that moment, I'm not even kidding, my first thought through my head was I coach. And that's noble. That's a good thing.
Absolutely.
I've spent a bazillion hours, helping people. But I had never been involved in local politics. I had never been to a school board meeting, a city council meeting, a county commissioners meeting. I didn't know anything about this stuff. And so we got out of there, and I listened to him the whole time. And not even kidding, this really happened. We got back to Newberg. It was a Friday night. It was an art walk. And I'm a painter, and I painted, and so I've had shows down there.
Sure.
But this Hispanic couple came up, super sweet little lady and her husband, and she stops and she goes, "I need to talk to you." And we're right down there by the gas station across from Johnson's Furniture, and she goes, "You need to run for the school board." I looked at her and I'm like, okay.
Did you know this person from?
I'd met her. Her kids were in our camps years before.
Okay.
Super sweet lady.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, on the outside, give her a hug. Judy gives her a hug. And then on the inside, I'm like, "Are you kidding?" I've been part of public education. You don't want to do that. And so this happened probably 200 times over the summer.
Oh, wow.
Going into the fall, people would come to school.
Unsolicited.
Unsolicited emails. It was crazy.
Wow.
And so the more that happened, the more you're like, what's going on here?
Right.
You know, and the basic bottom line is they just need somebody with some common sense and, strong. And so I'm a popular coach, and I know a lot of people around. I grew up in Newberg.
Sure.
And so then all of a sudden you go for it, win the election against two other people. And Judy had to prompt me to keep, are you going to run? You're going to run? You're going to run? And, I didn't have somebody like John around to carry my lunch pail like you do. So I had to, pretty soon you get in there and then it all starts happening fast. Politics is,
yes, it does.
My favorite line all time is Candace Owens when the gal's out in the audience heckling her about not wanting her on her campus. And Candace Owens says, life's tough, get a helmet.
There you go.
If you're going to be in politics, it's like sports and coaching. It's like business. It's like running a podcast. There's pressure, and life's tough. There's going to be bad stuff happen.
Sure. Yeah.
So, and that came.
Yep, it did. Do you want to talk about it a little bit?
Still going through therapy. No, I don't mind at all. It's my wife Judy and I, we try to have a lot of humor about a lot of this, but I think it's just one of those things where this is where I was supposed to go, what I was supposed to do. I think all my growing up around tough farmers, growing up around alcoholic parents who didn't drink during the week, they did on the weekends, but were good people.
Sure.
There's some good life lessons. And then you go into, being an adult and going through different jobs and then having a great experience in the hardwood markets in a great company, then education, and then coaching really makes you have to be tough to be a coach. There's a lot that happens,
sure.
And it's not just a game on the field or the court.
Right.
And so I feel like I was set up to handle, what was going to come my way, and boy, did it come my way.
Sure did. So you have made in the last couple of years, you kind of hung up the coaching jersey or hat or whatever you would call that responsibility. Tell us what precipitated that decision.
Well, there's just the right way and the wrong way to do stuff. And, Oregon blew up last year, with Aiden Gallagher. He was, it just blew up again last night, by the way. It's happening again. And it's boys playing girls sports, men playing girls sports. We know Riley Gaines. We spent time with Riley Gaines.
Sure.
So we're coaching at Canby. We know it's coming our way. We know there's a team coming our way. I don't want to say the name of the school right now, but we knew it was coming, and there's no way I'm going to put up with this.
Right.
As a coach, I have 4 goals: have fun, work hard, be respectful, compete.
And so you're coaching
girls tennis,
in Canby.
Yeah, and it's coming, and we got 45 girls, and there is no way some boys playing against those girls. And that's the first time I'd ever coached girls. I'd always coached boys before this. And so there's like having 45 daughters around. You're like, my first thing was protection, safety of those kids.
Sure.
So what happened was we just decided before we got fired that, we went to the school board at Canby and resigned, and 15 million hits on, all around the world, calls from all over the world came our way. It was kind of the start of Riley Gaines and that whole thing. And although I love Riley, she's so cool. She and Judy just, they're like mom, daughter.
Yeah.
It's just fabulous that there's people out there fighting, but we decided to go before the school board and just resign and say, hey. But I did tell them that
what's right is right.
What's right is right. Not very far from where we're sitting right now is the Oregon Department of Education.
Yep.
And they're wrong on just about every issue. And they are pushing all this. And people want to get mad at coaches or principals in a school, and that's not it. It's state level down.
Yeah,
and it's wrong. And I think again, this is the second time this whole thing's hitting Oregon track. We were at the state track meet last year, even though it was actually my first track meet I'd ever been to. Because in the springtime, I'm always coaching tennis.
Sure.
And the tears and the stories and the parents and the grandparents and the kids, the stories we heard would just break your heart.
So that's precipitated another little life pivot, and you've created your own podcast, Stand Tall with Dave Brown.
Yeah.
And talk a little bit about that, your reach, who you're talking to, the issues that you're talking to the audience about.
Yeah, a friend of ours that we worked with, several years ago. We started Newberg Dundee Strong, 700 people. It was just a grassroots move. It started with like 12 people, and we just wanted to make a difference in our community.
Right.
And it grew, and you start to get a little flavor of politics. You start to kind of figure stuff out, and then that grew into just more of a perspective on there's a lot more to do here. Moving forward, being part of the school board, people kind of would look to you for leadership.
Sure.
And I guess for me, it's like there's always been these doors opening up. Like right now, being the chair of the Yamhill County Republican Party.
Right.
Trust me, I never woke up anytime one morning saying, this is what I want to do when I grow up.
Sure.
It just was there. I saw what had been leadership and some of the problems, and said, I can handle that and fix that.
Sure.
And so you just kind of put those practical things of coaching into that. I don't know if that answers your question there directly,
Yeah,
but
I think so. I think as we wrap up, I'd like to wrap up on a positive note. So you're obviously staying involved. What's the future of public education in Oregon? Is it salvageable? And are you optimistic about the future of the state of Oregon?
yeah, I think that's one of our big things with Stand Tall is I am an optimist. I see the good parts of public education. My kids went there. I went there. My wife went there. We worked there for 54 years between us, over 70 years coaching.
Right.
Do I think it's salvageable? Yes. Do I think the state of Oregon, we will go red? I think it's just a matter of once we have people decide that our country is more important than their football game, or it's more important than their yard or their trip to the beach, where they're going to have to put some thought and effort into this.
Right.
What I've seen, Bruce, everywhere that I've been is and I call it the kindergarten education of something. You don't want me to fix your car. That's not me. I think a lot of people have a kindergarten education when it comes to what's going on here in Washington, for sure. I do still. I want to learn a lot more. I want to bring that to the YCRP. Yeah. But we have a kindergarten education out there and what needs to be done. Public education is on the ropes big time, and they don't want to admit it.
Right.
The number one culprit in the entire public education system is the teachers' unions, by far, not even close. They are steering this ship, and what I feel they're doing is and I've dealt a lot with unions on the school board and
Sure.
Being in the union.
Right.
Is they're doubling down and doubling down and doubling down. I mean, they're Gavin Newsom on steroids, and what they're doing is they're putting themselves in a spot where they're ranked 47th in the country, yet they want more money from you guys. Yep. They want, which you guys means us, the taxpayers, and people have to understand that is their taxpayer dollars, and it's not being spent correctly. We waste so much money at the public school, you can't even believe what really happens. We just talked to somebody at University of Arizona on DEI, for example. You know what they're doing down there? They're just changing the names of the jobs.
Right.
That's all they're doing, and that's what public education does. They just do what they want to do. I
call it linguistic gymnastics.
Yes.
And they change the meaning of words.
Oh my goodness! And public education can be fixed, though. There are great teachers out there. I say this all the time. So the public has to know that it's not your principal's fault. It's not your athletic director's fault. It's not necessarily your teacher's fault. It's the teachers' unions telling everybody that the administrators are scared to death of the unions. Trust me. Before we fired Joe Morlock in Newberg, and that was for a lot of things to do with vaccinations and masks, I was approached by all those principals. You need to fire this guy. We hate him. So, and after we fired him, they loved him and they hated us. Right. And so I think when you look at everything coming down with public schools, every administrator out there, even superintendents, if the ODE calls, it's like the Gestapo. They call and they just kind of tell you what's up. And that's why I told the Canby School Board, if you go back and watch that film, I said, you don't have any power. Right. In a school board, you really don't have any power. You might, decide what you're going to spend a little bit of money on in the budget. But really, the Oregon State School Board Association, which has a big budget, they come in and they have a lot of very, very leftist, socialistic agenda type stuff that they push. And a lot of the school board members come in thinking they're going to, make a big change. And then all of a sudden they realize they're boxed in tight. Yeah. And it's a tough one. I still am an optimist. I still think it can be fixed. I think, what I have found is when you get the right leadership in, people like you with a lot of integrity, the Lithicums, people like that with a lot of integrity, and you just have to get more than one. You have to get two, then you have to get three, then you have to get four. And that's what we're going to push in the Yamhill County Republican Party, is just to do whatever we can do. I've already spoken with all the counties, all 8 counties near us, Lincoln to Columbia to Multnomah to Clackamas. We're all going to work together really hard.
Yeah.
We want to be stronger together as a big unit to help fundraise and to do things to help people like you.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I believe the key to winning is to not give up.
Absolutely.
We don't give up. We keep fighting. And, I've been in politics. I've been out of politics. I'm back in politics, in elective politics, but I never gave up. When I wasn't in elective office,
Great line.
I never gave up.
Great line.
Just keep fighting.
Coaching for me too, it's like, I'm not saying I relish being down 20, at the end of the third quarter.
Not fun.
I've won games like that.
Yeah.
Because you just sit back. You ever remember that movie with Mel Gibson when he's in Vietnam and he just would stand there with his hands on his hips and he'd survey the whole battlefield, and then he just, bam, bullets are flying. He makes a decision. And I've kind of operated that way a little bit too. It's just like you sit back and you're going, all right, that didn't work, so we're going to hang a hard left. And I've came back and won or almost won games like that. You never give up. And I think, we were in Iowa last year when President Trump was, nearly assassinated. And, I think that whole fight, of course it was a magical political moment for him, to use that in a positive way.
Right. But
fight is something we have to teach all of our Oregonians to do. And that's how I teach and coach. You never give up. And I think Oregon, when people ask us about Oregon, we were just on a 17-day trip, and people ask about Oregon. And, people know it as a beautiful place as far as the landscape.
Right, the environment.
But people look at it, they compare all of Oregon to Portland, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think that we have this opportunity here now. It's going to be fun to see Oregon turn red, in my opinion, because we have this chance to, not only have a beautiful state, outside, but then also on the people on the inside. And I'm starting to see, I had a guy the other day who's been awful in Newberg about a month ago, and I'm out hitting some balls on the golf course there at Salem Glen.
Yeah.
And he actually said, "Hi, Dave. This guy has been awful for about 4 years." And I looked at him and I go, "Hey, Steve, what's up?" And I walked over there and shook his hand. And I try to do that as much as I can, with people. There are a few people I try to stay away from they're pretty toxic. But I think it can come around. And
I absolutely believe that. I believe that Oregon can be the Florida of the Northwest. We have so much going for us. There's so much potential, so much opportunity. We just need Oregonians to switch the leaders that they continue to elect.
Right.
We have different leadership. This state can turn around, and we can have the best schools. We can have businesses that grow and thrive. We have entrepreneurs that want to stay here, but instead they're moving because it's terrible to do business here. We can turn that around with the right leadership. That's why I'm staying involved. That's why I'm never going to quit. I'm going to stay engaged. I know you are. And I really appreciate the opportunity to spend some time this morning with my good friend, Dave Brown. I encourage you to stay engaged, stay involved. Don't ever quit. We can turn the state around. Appreciate the opportunity to have some conversations with Bruce Starr this morning. My guest, Dave Brown. Thank you very much.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate it.